All right, everyone. If y'all can hear me, I believe you can, because somebody would tell me. All right, let us get started. So welcome, everyone, and welcome, Landon. So Landon Woods is the Southern Regional Coordinator for the Conservation Coalition, which is a market-based environmental nonprofit that engages in public policy and local action across the United States. As regional coordinator, Landon oversees 11 states, maintaining stakeholder relationships throughout in developing partnerships and fostering community action. Landon Woods graduated from A&M University with a BA in agricultural economics and currently attends Texas Tech for his master's in agricultural business and management. Landon has also worked as a researcher for the Joseph Rainey Center, assistant to the CFO of the Millennium Challenge Corporation, and as a congressional staff assistant in Washington, D.C. So, folks, as we can see, Mr. Woods has quite a distinguished resume, and Landon, hopefully you can give us all some insight as to how the heck you made it happen. How did you organize everything? How did you get it going?
Jacob, well, I really appreciate the introduction, and it sounds really nice. You know, my time and my work career started from my relationships in college and even before that. And you know, I ended up going to DC on an internship through Texas A&M, and then it's kind of all a story from there. But I later moved out of DC and spent some time abroad, and now I'm enjoying being back home near my parents and spending some time with family, like during all COVID stuff. So it's been a journey, and I really appreciate the introduction, and I'm looking forward to talking to these guys today.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and it is good to be home, right? Me too, Texas born and bred. So let's talk about, where your expertise is in mainly in networking. So everyone hears that, you need to, be good at networking, but most young people don't really know what that is and how to go about doing it. So could you give us like a broad general definition of what networking is and maybe what that looks like today?
Sure, absolutely. So, to me, networking, I've had different jobs in different places that have been quite unrelated in some ways. So to boil down what networking has been to me, it's just about interacting with people and exchanging information, the things you're interested in, and asking other people what they're interested in, and just developing professional and also just personal and social contacts. So, networking doesn't have to be thought of as some intimidating big issue that you're coming up on as you approach adulthood. It really is just about interacting and building relationships with people. So it's not near as intimidating as sometimes it's made out to be.
Okay, so it's not like you're clocking in and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go do some networking for 45 minutes and then I'm done. It's more just the way you foster relationships mainly.
Yeah, absolutely. And, different people have different amounts that they can take. I really enjoy being with people, but sometimes I recharge by myself. So, I would just encourage people to take on the amount of networking that you kind of have the bandwidth and will to do, and start from there. So it really is just about just starting those relationships and nurturing them.
Mm-hmm. And I venture to guess that a little networking is still far better than zero, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, it's always great to get involved in something, and, some of your friends may be involved in 10 things, but just don't compare yourself to that. Do what you can, get involved in what you're interested in, and maybe you take the lead in one organization and your friends may be involved in multiple in a different capacity. So involvement for everyone looks different, and how you start networking looks different for everyone. And don't be afraid to branch out and try, a new sort of networking on your own.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. So let's keep going with that, if you don't mind. So the people in the audience, the students in the audience are young, and they have potential, and they have their life ahead of them, and the where they'll end up is very much a function of the road they take. So could we put ourselves in the shoes of a high school student that wants to start networking, hopefully today? You know what I mean? So, let's take somebody's group of friends. How could somebody either take friends that already exist or find friends that, I guess, you could work together in various ways? Like, how do you get the ball rolling?
Absolutely. So, the thing that I find the most success with is like finding common values, people that have common interests with you, and just starting conversations. So, how you interact in high school and you do projects together, or you like go on trips together. That's really no different than what it is like in the workplace. You have to interact with people, and sometimes you have to take yourself out of your comfort zone to do that. And for high school students, a great place to start is just your classmates. Just talk to them. And some of you likely don't know exactly what you want to do with your life. And that's okay, because I oftentimes question exactly what it is I want to do for the rest of mine as well. But talk to your colleagues and your friends and your teachers about, and find what's interesting to you, and just do something that's involved with that. And then also, get involved, volunteer, talk to your parents. Your parents' friends likely are involved in some sort of work that you could be interested in, and don't neglect those relationships because you've known them since you were, little bitty and they were calling you nicknames. So like, use everyone in your network that you can, and just talk to them and start by trying to figure out like what your interests are. And if you don't feel like you have one, that's perfectly fine. Just volunteer somewhere, and you'll find other people that are maybe volunteering that doesn't seem like a common thing to come together over, but getting out there and doing work together, there's lots of great conversations that can happen. And that's kind of what we do in our organization, is getting people out and speaking and finding common ground.
Yeah. Okay. So common interests, common ground, that brings people together. And you need to find the common ground. So that's probably the first takeaway. So okay. So let's think about with TCC. When you say, I guess, actually, let's back up. Are people generally receptive when you try to make the effort to network? Like, will they pick up what you're doing and reciprocate it, or is that kind of the hard part?
Yeah, Jacob, I think that is kind of the hard part. COVID has kind of done a number on us, and a lot of people have kind of taken a step where interacting is more challenging, and people kind of stay in their own bubble. And that's something that we need to try to break out of as much as we can, even in a virtual environment. So there absolutely is, there's ways to, continue interacting with people. And, with TCC, there's lots of relationships, and you have to decide which ones you have the time and bandwidth to put tons of effort into. And you can't expect to win everything. You're not going to find that common ground with every single person. And for us, we're a market-based. We believe in the power of markets to fix environmental issues and address those. We believe that people should use innovation to solve problems. And, there's people out there, even coming from an environmental organization that aren't going to always agree with you. And you got to, you have to work as hard as you can to build those relationships, but don't get discouraged when you get turned down, because there's always someone else out there that you can build a relationship with. And don't let one person that turns you away or doesn't, snuffs their nose at you, don't let them be the ones that discourage you from continuing to network and get out there and talk to people.
Okay, so that's actually a huge point. We have all, me, you, Chris, everyone, we have all experienced various forms of rejection in our, careers, just, putting yourself out there and it not being reciprocated. You survive, right? And you gotta do it. And everybody started there. But yeah, I mean, networking is challenging. And I guess for people that struggle to make those connections, or if people stick up their nose at you, are there any ways to help you stay motivated, or I guess just work through it?
Man, that's a hard question.
Or do you just fake it till you make it?
Well, there is a lot of just trial and error, and learning from the past. For me, I really tend to live with a sense of urgency. So if someone that I reach out to is not reciprocating, then I need to take another route. And it just turns out that that's not the relationship I need to invest in. And that's something that people have to understand in life, right? In general, is if someone's not reciprocating a relationship, you can't be the only one putting things into it. And it's the same way in business or in nonprofits or in government as well. I mean, if someone's not putting effort into a relationship, where's the incentive to continue that? So there's a big, definitely have to nurture those and reach out and find that common ground. So
yeah. And I imagine you on your end also need to actively make sure you maintain those relationships, right? So it goes both ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge point. Following up with people, authentically following up with people, is huge. And there's people in the entertainment industry, the highest levels of the entertainment industry, like actors that I've seen, thank you cards from that are handwritten. And that sort of commitment to authentically following up shows that you're going to take time out of your day, the most precious thing that you have, and invest it in this relationship and following up with someone and telling them that you value your relationship with them and that you should have, good communication. So follow up, and it definitely goes both ways. Absolutely.
Okay, so when it comes to following up, let's talk about that within the scope of, I guess, virtual communication, because generally, I mean, let's think of it like a follow-up email, but also just networking through the internet or through social media. We can get to that too. But so if a student is to type up a follow-up email, let me guess, or tell me if I'm correct. Do not use a complete template and with zero changes. Don't do a to whom it may concern kind of thing. Make it no, I'm actually talking to you. This is for you, Yeah,
absolutely. It should definitely be personal. I mean, be professional, especially if you're in the stages of establishing the relationship. Use, address them politely, and don't be too casual, but eventually it becomes a back and forth, and email is used a lot in the business world, just like texting your friends. But know that you need to have a well-established relationship with someone before you can interact with them in that manner. So definitely, follow up online, and don't use forum emails. Use people's names. Write something that, if you met them, like say thank you for telling me this about, provide some context and talk to people, and don't take away the humanity from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we like that. Like I enjoy. I'm more than happy to respond to someone that reaches out to me. It was really cool at that trash pickup. I had a lot of fun. It'd be great to collaborate in the future. That was that person networking with me, and I'm aware of that, and I'm fine with it. Like that's cool. So if you don't mind, can we continue to pivot to like digital or social media? Can we talk about networking from a social media perspective?
I would, yeah, absolutely. But just keep in mind that I'm kind of a boomer when it comes to social media. So
well, we're on LinkedIn, right? So
yes, absolutely.
So yeah, here's the scoop, y'all. Y'all need to get on LinkedIn.
Absolutely. LinkedIn is an incredible network. It is like a resume on the internet, and it is an incredible way to search for jobs, and people keep up with people. It's like, how your parents are like probably like on Facebook, keeping all up with their friends in town. Like LinkedIn, I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard about it, but LinkedIn has been one of my best friends in networking. It like people being able to endorse you, seeing what people are interested in. LinkedIn is also a great way when you are fostering connections to understand people better and see what they're interested in, see what they're sharing on LinkedIn. There's articles about, innovation and new practices and news that is all shared there. And it's a great place to build, context around people and understand them better.
Yeah. So yeah, obviously everything is done virtually. I haven't applied for a job that didn't have an online application component, but here's my follow-up question. Is there a difference between using LinkedIn as a tool and using LinkedIn as social media? Do people kind of use it as entertainment, or is that actually a good thing? Like,
Yeah,
is it like Twitter or Instagram or something?
it's become, there is a little bit of like a bit of a news source. Like I keep up with a lot of innovation things that are happening, like new technologies. It can become a little bit like a place to post things, but I would honestly say it's one of the most wholesome like sites out there, even when people disagree on issues, unlike in Facebook where there's lots of vitriol sometimes. It seems that in LinkedIn, the conversation stays pretty reasonable. But it absolutely can be used or abused really as a social media site. But man, for me, it's been a great tool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, now that I think about it, everybody there is trying not to make like somebody mad that might give them a job. So of course they're all going to be on their best behavior. It's the opposite of Facebook where it's like you need to cull your posts. But anyway, yeah. So I kind of feel like a boomer too a little bit. I think the younger generation could probably teach us about social media. But I think it's fair to say that when it comes to networking, you should use LinkedIn as like the dedicated platform, and maybe use social media more as for social things.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I keep it very professional on LinkedIn. That's where I spend my work time trying to meet people. I'm planning an event in Nashville right now. I use LinkedIn to find people to join. So there's a lot of great uses for it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So okay, so I want to open it up to questions, but if you don't mind, can we talk about real quick, can we talk about the Tennessee thing that you just said?
Sure.
So how did you, so you clearly use LinkedIn, but clearly you had to have your network in place to be able to search those people out. So could you speak a little bit to how you were able to find the people to help you for the Tennessee thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So the organization I work for had some standing contacts, obviously, that have been nurtured over the past 4 years since we've started. But actually, one of the most instrumental folks in helping me plan and identify contacts, like specifically in the Nashville area, is an old friend of mine from 4-H that I met as a sophomore in high school. She now runs a community like resource center that's like through the state basically. And I'm able to reach out to her, and she knows many contacts in the area. So I've fostered that relationship since I was, 14, 15 years old, for 10 years. And it's been one of my like strongest, ways to build out my event, and also just an absolute pleasure to connect with people that you've known for a long time. So there's no time too soon to start networking and keeping those relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's also no reason to discount the possibility that any person could turn into, who would have thought that at 14 you were basically at a job interview? You know what I mean? Like, so I guess, yeah, to the students, I would say, don't take anyone for granted. Don't take any opportunity for granted. You never know what is going to be the thing that's going to be the link from, point A to point B. But yeah, so folks, if y'all have any questions, I would love to open it up to y'all. Please put them in the chat box if you would be so kind. You know what? In the meantime, while we're waiting for any questions to pop up, so if you don't mind, let me ask. So we talked a little bit about like the challenges of networking. It's not always easy. Have you had any experience with like let's just let's just go straight for it, like anxiety, because these things can be nerve-wracking for some people, and I know we've already kind of talked about it, but do you have any just words of advice for anyone that might think, wow, this is going to be a challenge for me?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I wanted to, I said earlier that do what you can and take what you take in what you can, get out and get involved, but don't overwhelm yourself, know yourself, and always challenge yourself to like be outside of your comfort zone just a little bit. That's the only way that anybody can ever, tame their anxiety or find ways to cope with it. And there's a lot of coping that's involved there. And you have to, just don't get down on yourself if you're a complete introvert and think that you can't network. You absolutely can. So.
You're good. No worries. It happens. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good advice. Obviously, stay slightly outside of your comfort zone. I mean, that's the way we grow. Okay, so here are some questions from the audience. What are some good examples of networking that have paid off, but was like totally unplanned? You had no idea that was going to be a thing. Oh, I think you're muted.
That's like the story of my life. man, a lot of most of my jobs have come from people that I've just networked with, and even people that I intentionally didn't intend on networking with. Sometimes it happens that you get forced into rooms with people and they become like, very good people in my network, and they've supported me, and I've worked for people that I never intended on working for. So I would also say you never know like who you're sitting in a room with. And there's always people that don't assume that someone's background, and don't cast your ideas about someone on them because you think that because you think or because you've had some experience, or you think you've had some experience. I mean, we truly are a country and a world, but in our workplace here in this country, we're a huge amalgamation, and some people like call us a salad bowl, and that's absolutely true. And you don't know what someone's background is, and just take every moment to get to know them, and you never really know where that relationship might take you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I could not have predicted, anything that happened in my life either, So here's a great question. When we're networking with people, especially online, but even just face to face, how do we know if they're scamming us or if they're being genuine?
When we're networking with people, how do we know if they're scamming us or if they're being genuine? I mean, I think that people in your all's generation can hopefully recognize like where what bots are, especially online, but use your judgment. You know, I guess when I sign up for like some websites, I might like feel like I'm getting a lot of spam, but if it doesn't look right, and you're reminding me of some emails that I've recently seen like in my spam folder that are like offering me a job, and it just doesn't look right. But question, and one way to always try to solve that problem really quickly is like get on the phone and like call and vet the company. Like find a phone number as quickly as you can, call, like look them up, just do a little due diligence to figure out who they are and who they're connected to.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw one other question from Ileana, which is, what is one thing that you wish you had known before going to college? The one thing I wish I would have known is, even though I was like very involved in high school, I should have been immediately prepared, like walking in the door freshman year, to get involved immediately on campus and find student groups, finding a place to volunteer. Even if you don't think that it interests you like professionally, but you have personal interest in it, that is so important. And leaving your family or the routine that you've lived for so many years at home, it's really important to have a community around you when you start college. And a great way to do that is to get involved and to volunteer places.
Yeah. Don't stay home, folks. Get out there. It's better that way. For your personal life and your professional life. Okay. So these are great questions. They're coming in now. What is one networking choice you wish you didn't make? Any snafus?
I would just say always if you say you're going to stay with someone for a time, don't try not to get yourself in situations where you're like trapped in a place for a specific time period. Try to avoid that as much as possible. But if you say that you're going to stay somewhere, stay there. stay there until you've like ridden that commitment out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would probably not be good if the people in your network started viewing you as flaky or something. You know, your word is your bond. Absolutely. Do you think that that drive? Oh, do you think personal hobbies? Sorry, I'm just trying to interpret the question. Okay, so I'm trying to ask Ethan's question. Is networking more of a function of like acting out one of your hobbies, or is it finding people with a shared interest simply as like to be practical? If that is the question.
I think that. Ask that again, Jacob. I'm sorry.
You're good. Do you think I'll just read it. Do you think that drive networking is sorry, let's do the other. How do you move past mistakes when you make how do you move past mistakes you make when networking?
Look, I mean, when you make a mistake in networking, it's hard for me to wrap my mind like around a huge mistake in networking, because sometimes there are relationships that, you know, aren't edifying to you and that you don't have to keep. So, you know, the people that you trust and that don't stop and sit down there. I mean, you must keep going, and don't be afraid of, you know, be honest, and like, you know, if you say something, keep your word, but don't be afraid to, you know, keep moving and do what's best for you, because there are a ton of people out there in the world, and don't feel like you get trapped in one network. There's so many other networks out there of people that you can get involved in if you feel like you need to, you know, start from the ground level again. I've had to do that. I've had to start from zero connections before, and there are ones that I felt were, you know, in my career path. And you just have to keep trying. You may apply for tons of jobs. You may not get many bites in networking, but ask people, and, you know, ask people for their feedback, like how you can become more of a professional. People like to be asked those questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love being asked those questions. I'm like, yeah, I'll tell you my advice. Do you think, or do you say that networking is a function of simply just getting in with groups of similar, like-minded people? It's simply just getting your foot in the door. It's not necessarily like specific things, but it's just the practice of involving yourself with various networks of people. I think that was Ethan clarifying his earlier question.
Different types of hobbies. I mean, networking, you know, it doesn't always have to be about like that one thing that you're interested in or your job. It really can just be like, you know, meeting that person out there and learning about them and their interest. It doesn't need to be overcomplicated. I'm sorry if I'm not understanding the question.
No, well, yeah, and I think that does make sense. Networking, maybe we make it a little more complicated than it needs to be. I'm sure there's, you know, I'm sure you have strategies and you've had a lot of trial and error, as you've mentioned. But I imagine it's more of just doing the thing rather than overthinking it, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You just got to get out there and continue to put yourself out there.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you get knocked down. I mean, it's the same thing in the business world and getting jobs. You know, I would say never get too frustrated in a job and leave. Just always always be willing to network and recognize that you can change jobs. You're not tied in somewhere, and find a work-life balance. Your life cannot be, you got to have family and other things out there that balance you, and figure out how much you can put into work. And that looks different for different people. Some people want to have a family quickly, and that's perfectly fine. We need children. And some people want to work, until they're 30 or 35, and then they're interested in settling down. And that's a privilege we have in this society, that, we have longer lifespans, and we have different choices that we can make. So there's no, specific answer to give, but, always, even when you get knocked down or things don't go as you plan, just always have a plan to do good and serve people in one way or another. And if you don't feel like you're getting that service out of your job, do some volunteer work. It's really good for you. It's good for our, the places we live, our communities, and it's a great way to keep anxiety at bay, and just get to know people, know how to interact with different people.
Yeah. It's like we're grown, but we still have to remind ourselves how to interact in the social world. It's emotional intelligence, it's social intelligence, it's all of that. Okay, so we are right at the end. Landon, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And if there are any questions that we did not get through, I urge y'all to please send an email to backtoparchment@gmail.com, and we will forward that to Landon. So Landon, thank you again. Do you have any last words?
Yeah, I think I pretty much said my last words, but I guess I would leave the guys with, don't get too caught up in your plan. And if it doesn't go exactly as you planned, like I said, just keep planning to do something and do good in the world, and keep getting out there, putting yourself out there. So
yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, no, and thank you so much for all your advice and your wisdom. Thank you, sir. I'll talk to you soon.